we're going to be moving on to standard form. So as a reminder, this right here, that equation is slope-intercept form. Today, we're going to be looking at a different way of writing equations, which is called standard form. So let's just review a couple of things before we start on that. So quick review of slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. And the great thing about slope-intercept form is that just by looking at the equation, I'm not doing any math, I'm not doing anything at all, just by looking, I can always identify the m, the slope, and the b. So in this first example, what's my slope?
2.
Yeah, 2. What's the y-intercept?
3.
3. Again, all that Dehuan had to do, all that we're doing is looking at the equation and picking out those numbers. So what about in this one right over here? What's the slope?
-1/2.
-1/2, exactly. What's the y-intercept?
1.
Look closely.
-1.
Yeah, -1. Because remember, any number in an equation kind of comes with the symbol in front of it. How about down here? Slope?
2/3.
2/3. Y-intercept?
-4.
-4, good. And then finally, slope. Oops, slope doesn't. What's my slope? Good, 3, thank you, Daniela. And y-intercept?
-1.
-1, exactly. So again, this is not hard stuff. This is just, this is what, the reason that this type of form is really good. Slope-intercept form is awesome because it tells us a lot of information about the graph. So what we can do with this information is that we can actually do the opposite of what we've been doing. What we've been doing is looking at a graph and then writing the equation for it. Well, now what we're going to do is we have an equation, and we're going to use that equation to make the graph. So I'm going to go through 2 examples. All I want you guys to do for now is just watch, because after the 2 examples, I'm going to share a link with you guys where you guys will be able to try this on your own. Okay, so for now, I just want you to watch and answer the questions I ask. So starting off, my information. I know my slope is what?
2/3.
2/3. And I know that my y-intercept is?
-4.
-4. Okay, so this information is what I'm going to use to graph my line. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the -4. I'm going to make this my starting point. And as a reminder, the y-intercept is always 0, comma, whatever number, b. So in this case, it's 0, comma, -4. Remember, the x is always 0. So this is going to be my starting point. I'm going to go to my graph, and I'm going to put a point down at 0, comma, -4. Right there. Okay, because that's my y-intercept, that's my starting point. And then from there, I'm going to be able to use my slope to go to the next point. So my slope is kind of like my directions. Okay, the y-intercept tells you where to start, but the slope tells you where to go from there. Because remember, slope is rise over run. And this is why I always say that it's better to keep things as a fraction, because the fraction can tell you your rise and your run. So over here, my rise is +2. So what does that tell me? Where do I go?
Up.
Up 2 units, exactly. Since my run is +3, what direction is that telling me to go in?
Right.
To the right, exactly. So my rise and my run tell me exactly where to go. I'm going to go up 2 units, and then I'm going to go 3 units to the right. And right here is where I'm going to put my next point. And I can do that a couple of times. If I go up 2 more times, 3 to the right here. You could do that as many times as you want because the slope is constant, which means that I could do this over and over and over again. And then once I have enough points down, in this case I put 4. Once I have enough points down, I can connect them all, and that's going to be my line. And I'm going to make my line nice and long. It has to go in both directions with arrows at the end. And there's my graph. So notice this graph is represented by my equation, and from the equation, I didn't have to do any math at all. All I had to do was look at the slope and look at the y-intercept, and that allowed me to graph my line. So do I have any questions right now? We're going to do this one more time, but so far, do I have any questions?
Yeah, I was just, like wondering for the rise over a run, how do you go up to right 3?
Okay, so good question. Remember, the rise tells you you're up and down. So rise tells you how much to go up or how much to go down. And the run tells you how much to go to the right or to the left. But
And then you like stopped at a point because you say you can like keep going.
Yeah, it's kind of like a staircase, right? You go up and then to the right. Then you go up and then to the right. And you keep doing that. Up, right, over and over again.
Is it like an end, or do you have to like reach the graph and then that's the end?
Well, this line technically goes on forever. Even though my graph stops at the number 10, that line will go on forever. But if you're just doing this like what you're about to do on the computer or doing it by hand, I always say make at least 3 points and then just make your line super long. Make sure it goes all the way across.
Okay.
Now, one last thing I want to clarify. How did I know that I had to go up and then to the right?
Because up is positive and the number is positive, and 3 is positive, and you go to the right when it's positive.
Exactly. So if the number's positive, you go up. If the number's negative, you go down. If the number's positive on the run, you go to the right. And if it's negative, you go to the left. So positives and negatives tell you which direction to go in. So in my next example, you're going to see what it means when it's negative. But do I have any final questions on this one? Cool. Okay, so here's another example, but this time my slope is negative. So here's the thing. This negative symbol is outside of the fraction. It's kind of saying that the whole fraction is negative. When the whole fraction is negative, you can do 2 different things. You can either put the negative symbol in the numerator, or you could put the negative symbol in the denominator. Both of those are correct. It doesn't matter if you put it in the numerator or in the denominator, because you'll get to the same place either way. So I just want you guys to understand, like, it doesn't matter if it's on top or on the bottom. The only thing is it can't be on both. You can't have -1 over -2, because what does that simplify to?
A negative? Oh no, wait, a positive.
Yeah, a positive, because this would be a negative divided by a negative. Those negatives cancel out, and now you have a positive. So this is not the same, but you could either make your negative on top or on the bottom. So in this case, let's just see what it looks like when I have -1 over +2. What is this telling me to do? Which direction and how many units?
What was the question again?
So just like the previous problem, now I want to know, what does my slope tell me to do? Where am I going and how many units?
Down 1.
Down 1, good. See, now I'm going down because it's a -1. And then what about the 2?
To the right.
Yeah, to the right, because the 2 is still positive. So this is still 2 units to the right. And what's my starting point? Where do I start?
-1.
Good, -1, because that's the b. So it's 0, comma, -1. So I go to my graph, 0, comma, -1 right here. And now I use my directions. I go down 1 and 2 units to the right. So down 1, 2 to the right, right here. Down 1, 2 to the right, right here. I'll do it one more time. Again, I could keep going on and on and on and on, but I'm going to stop here. And then I'm going to connect everything and make my line really long. All right, so there it is. Do I have any questions so far?
No.
Okay, now I want to show you guys what we did was we used -1 over +2. But let's see what happens if I did it the other way, if I did +1 over -2. If I did +1 over -2, then what would my directions be? Because we went,
So up 1.
this would be up 1 and
2 to the left.
2 to the left, exactly. And let's see what happens. If I do that, starting from the y-intercept, if I went up 1 unit and 2 to the left, I would end up there. If I did it again, right here. So notice it's the same line, it's just going the other way. So that's why it doesn't matter if you choose to put the negative symbol on the top in the numerator or in the denominator. Either way, you'll get to the same line. So it does not matter. Okay, any questions before I have you guys try this on your own? Questions going once? Questions going twice? All right. Okay, so what I'm gonna have you guys do is click on the link. I'm about to put it in the chat. And you guys will get 5 minutes to work on a very similar problem. You're gonna do it all on your own, graphing on your own for 5 minutes. In those 5 minutes, just do as many problems as you can. It goes up to 10, so do as many as you can in 5 minutes, but it's okay if you don't do all 10 of them. It's totally okay if you only do 1 or 2. Okay, so your 5 minutes begin now. Go ahead and try it out. If you have any questions, you can ask them on the chat or out loud. What am I doing here? The following what?
What's wrong with you, Rick? How old are you right now, man?
The following linear equation is written in standard form. Use the properties of equations to convert it into slope-intercept form. Then identify the slope and y-intercept.
Good, thank you. Okay, so like I said, standard form is nothing is isolated. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use the properties of equality, which we've done this in the past. It's been a couple months, but we're gonna do this again. And what we're gonna do is we're going to try to get y all by itself. Because again, we wanna get it isolated. We wanna get y all alone. So go ahead and just copy down this equation. And then we're gonna follow these 2 steps to get y all alone. So if I'm trying to get y all by itself, who needs to go away?
The 4x.
The 2.
Okay, so both the 2 and the 4x have to go. One of them has to go first. And does anyone remember which one has to go first?
-4.
Yeah, the negative 4x. That one has to move over first. And what operation can I use to get the negative 4x over to the opposite side?
Addition.
Divide.
Nope, addition. You got it right.
Oh,
We're going to add 4x to both sides because we're doing the opposite of what we see. Since the 4x was negative, we're going to add it to get it over. And that's my addition property. Remember all this, guys? This comes right back. It never goes away. So my 4x's cancel, and I'm left with 2y. And then on the right side, can I add? Should I be doing 10 plus 4?
no,
No, why not?
because 10 doesn't have a variable.
Exactly. Remember, you can only
They're
add
not like
things.
terms.
You can only add things if they are like terms. But these are not like terms, so I can't add them. So I'm going to keep them separate. But I'm going to put the 4x first. So I'm going to write 4x plus 10. Because remember what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get this to look like y equals mx plus b. So I need to put the x term first and then the 10. Okay. So far I've got the 4x, I moved it over. Now I still need to get y by itself. So what operation should I use now?
Divide.
Yeah, so now we can divide. And I'm dividing by 2, and I'm going to divide everything on the right side by 2. So what happens? I end up with y equals, and then I'm taking each of the terms on the top, I'm dividing each of those by 2. So I have to do 4x divided by 2. So what do I get there?
2x.
2x. All I do is divide. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And then I have to do 10 divided by 2. What's 10 divided by 2?
5.
5. So that's my slope-intercept equation. So I started with standard form. And all I didn't change the equation, I just moved it around. I had standard form, and I've converted it into slope-intercept form. Do I have any questions on how I did that? How I went from standard form to slope-intercept form? Okay, awesome. So now that I have it in slope-intercept form, now I can you can tell me what is the slope and what is the y-intercept. So in this case, what's my slope?
2.
2. What's my y-intercept?
5.
5, exactly. Could I have that information from the beginning? If I look back at the original equation, did I know that?
No.
No. And that's why standard form is a little tricky, because the thing with standard form is that it's kind of useless. It's kind of useless. If you just look at it, it doesn't tell you anything good, anything interesting about your graph. So the only way to actually graph something, if it's in standard form, is to convert it first into slope-intercept form. And then from there, we know how to do that. We know how to graph it. So this is why we need to know how to convert it into slope-intercept form. So we're going to do one more together. So any questions so far? All right, cool. So let's go ahead and do one more. So doing this together, what do I do first to get y by itself? I'm trying to isolate y.
Divide by 3.
Not divide,
Subtract.
subtract, yeah. Because remember, in this example, in the previous example, we added because the 4x was negative. But here, the 3x is positive, so we're going to subtract first. Okay, so I'm subtracting 3x. So now I have 4y equals, And remember, any number in an equation matches with the symbol that's in front of it. They go together. So when I rewrite these two numbers underneath, I'm going to write negative 3x minus 12. Because those negative symbols live together. These go together. Okay? So that's kind of just something important to always remember. And now my second step, what do I do now to get y by itself?
Divide everything by 4.
Yeah, divide everything by 4. Okay, so now I have y equals, and just like before, each of the top terms gets divided individually. So right now I'm doing negative 3x divided by 4. And what do I get here?
Point
Okay.
75.
Yeah, thank you. I saw it in the chat, and Angel just said I get 0.75. However, remember what I said in the previous problem. We always want to keep fractions as fractions. I don't want to turn it into a decimal because decimals don't tell me the rise and the run. So instead of turning it into a decimal, I'm going to keep it as a fraction, and I actually see somebody gave it to me in the chat. So this fraction simply becomes negative 3 over 4. We're just going to leave it like that because I can't simplify it any further, so that's it. Now the other side of it, I'm dividing negative 12 divided by positive 4. So what do I get there?
Negative 3.
Yeah, negative 3. Good job. And that's it. That's my equation. So now that I have my equation, what is the slope? What's the slope?
Negative
Good.
2, 4.
Negative 3 over 4.
Good, negative 3 over 4. And then the y-intercept
Wait, Miss,
is negative
when we
3.
divided,
Mhm.
how did you get negative 3 over 4?
So in that step, all I was doing was negative 3x divided by 4. So I'm going to kind of pull this out. So this is negative 3x divided by 4. So all I really was doing, if you used a calculator and you did negative 3 divided by 4, you would get 0.75x. But like I said, I want to keep things as fractions because that tells me my rise and my run. So all I really did was I kind of plopped that x outside of the fraction. Yeah. So even though that x was in the numerator to begin with, all we really did was we kind of pulled it out of the fraction and just kept the fraction. Okay, does that clarify it?
Yes.
Cool. Any other questions? Before, I'm going to give you guys 2 examples to try on your own. Okay, cool. All right, so let's go ahead. Try these 2 on your own. I'll give you guys 5 minutes. You're going to convert it from standard form into slope-intercept form. And when you have an answer, you can send it to me in the chat, and I'll tell you if you were right. 5 minutes start now. About 1 minute left. 1 minute left. All right, guys, that's it. So let's go ahead and look at these. I saw some wonderful answers. So anyone who I said you got it good, make sure you participate. I want to hear your voices as well. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and solve. We're trying to get y by itself. So what do I do first? What happens first?
Add 5.
Good. We're going to add 5x. I add 5. I'm going to go ahead and just write it down side by side because I'm not going to add 8 plus 5. They're not like terms, so I keep them separate. So I have 5x plus 8. And don't forget that this negative, that comes down. Don't forget about your negatives. Because now when I do the next step, what do I have to do? Good, Daniela. We're going to divide by -2. So that was important to make sure you had that -2. And what does that give me as my final answer? Got y equals what?
5 divided by -2.
So again, this is 5 over -2x. And then what?
-4.
Minus 4. -4 minus 4. Okay, cool. Now, since I have that 5 over -2, remember, anytime there's a negative in the numerator or a negative in the denominator, we can just rewrite that as making the whole fraction negative. So this is -5/2 x minus 4. What's my slope? What's my slope?
-5 over 2.
-5 over 2. What's my y-intercept? Good, Geraldine, -4. Awesome. Questions on A. A was a little tricky only because you had to do 5 over 2, which obviously we're going to keep as a fraction. If you had it as a decimal, if you had 2.5, -2.5, technically that's still correct. I'm not saying that's wrong. It's just that the fraction is better for showing rise and run. All right, now let's go ahead and do B. B was pretty similar. What do I do first? Good, subtract 3x. And again, this is, just remember, anytime that you subtract a value, that negative symbol comes with it. Same thing here, this negative has to come down. So I have -6y. And now putting it all together here, I have -3x minus 12. Because those negatives live with the number. Now I do what?
Divided by -6. 1.
Good. Yeah, divide by -6. -6, and that's going to make some interesting things happen. because here what happens? Okay, I have -3 divided by -6. What does that give me? -3 over -6.
1/2.
Good. Is that going to be positive or negative?
Positive because they're dividing by with two negatives.
Good. So this is positive 1/2. And then what about here? -12 divided by -6. Good. 2. Positive 2. Because again, I have a negative divided by a negative. So there's my answer. Y equals 1/2 x plus 2. So this one was, you had to be very, very careful about the positives and the negatives and making sure that you were keeping track of all of that. What's my slope?
1/2.
1/2. What's my y-intercept?
Two.
2. Boom, done. Questions, comments, concerns? Okay. You might be questioning, okay, Miss Lopez, now I know how to do this. Why does that even matter? Why do I have to do this? Well, skip this. Okay. The reason we want to do this is because, again, does this equation tell me anything about the graph? Do I know anything right now?
No.
I know nothing. This is a useless equation at the moment. Okay? In order to actually graph this line, I'm going to have to solve it. Or rather, I'm going to have to isolate the y. And then I'll be able to know the slope, I'll be able to know the y-intercept, and I'll be able to graph it without any problems. So let's go ahead. All together, let's do this one. What do I do first?
Subtract 2.
Subtract 2x, good. Okay, so I have 3y equals -2x minus 12. And now what do I do to both sides? Good, Daniela,
Divide.
we're gonna divide by 3. Okay, and I get y equals, okay, what happens here?
Miss, when you do that, do you divide first like 3 divided by -2?
Nope,
Or
other way,
-2?
top and bottom.
Okay.
-2 divided by 3. So in other words, is this going to be a whole number or a fraction?
Fraction?
Yeah, it's going to be a fraction because I can't do -2 divided by 3. That's going to end up as a fraction. So all I need to do is rewrite it as a fraction. So what would I write here?
-2 over 3,
Mhm.
or the whole fraction.
Yeah. -2/3 x. And now the other half of it that I have to divide, I have -12 divided by 3. What's that?
4.
Yeah. Positive or negative?
Positive or negative?
Negative, yeah. -4, because I have a -12, negative divided by a positive, negative. All right, so now I have my slope-intercept equation. And let's get the information we need. What's my slope? What's my slope?
Over 3.
Good. And remember, I could do -2 over +3, or I could do +2 over -3. Each one, whichever one you want, works. So I could put the negative on the top. And what does the -2 tell me to do? Where am I going?
Down.
Good. Down 2 units. What about the +3?
Go to the right.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. And where am I starting? What's my y-intercept? Good, Daniela, -4, which is what point? What's the actual point?
0, -4.
0, -4.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now I have everything I need. I have my starting point. Let's go there, -4. And now I'm going to go down 2 units and then 3 to the right. So down 2, 3 to the right. Down 2, 3 to the right. Now, if I wanted to go the other way, instead of going down and then to the right, I could go up and then 3 to the left. Same thing. So obviously I put a lot of points here. You don't need to put this many, but I just wanted to have a lot so that I can connect this nice and easily. All right, and there is my line. I'm gonna go nice and straight in both directions. There it is. So again, slope-intercept form is the best equation. This is the best thing you can have for graphing. Okay, if they give you something in standard form, you can't really graph that without doing some math. Okay, so that's why it's important to convert it, and then you'll be able to graph. Do I have any questions? Okay, so I'm going to give you guys another link. It's a similar type of, it's the same website, but now all of the problems are in standard form. So you're going to need to do the work first, do the math first, and then you'll be able to graph. Okay, so I'll give you guys, I want to give you guys a little bit more time for this one since it involves a little bit more work. So I'll start with 7 minutes and then I'll ask you guys and we'll see if we need a little more time, but we are a little bit early, so you guys will have some extra time at the end probably. So go ahead, click on the link, play around with it, and if you get a question wrong, the website actually tells you how to do it correctly. So if you get something wrong, make sure you read through and you try to understand what you did incorrectly. And you can always ask me questions in the chat as well.
Yeah, I gotta isolate your Y.